The RX 590 is on the scene, and 1080p gamers have a new champion. For $280, this is probably the best performing card under $300. Although for around $200, the just replaced RX 580 boasts similar specs and benchmark results, so this may not actually give you the best bang for your buck. Still though, companies like PowerColor and Sapphire are putting out factory overclock versions of the 590 that promise boosted gaming FPS, along with lower temps and less noise. Let's see if their claims hold water.
Ready to dive into custom water cooling but unclear about what parts you might need? Check out Thermaltake's new M360 Plus RGB kit. Featuring a D5 pump res combo, 16mm hard tube, Pacific Sea Pro fittings, and the best RGB implementation on the market, the M360 Plus fits all mainstream Intel and AMD sockets and is fully expandable as your system evolves. Check out the link in the video description to learn more.
So this is the third time we've seen the name Polaris attached to a GPU die. The RX 590 is basically yet another refresh of the original RX 480. Although with each generation, AMD gets a little more efficient with the process, which results in slightly higher base and boost clock speeds. For your reference, in 2016, the RX 480 launched on the 14nm node and sported base and boost clocks of 1120 and 1266 MHz. In 2017, we got the 14nm FinFET refresh in the form of the 580, and now we have the same architecture on a 12nm die in 2018 with these two right here. The RX 590 still rocks the same 36 compute units and 2304 stream processors, but the slight shrinking of the die makes the package more efficient, and as a result, clock speeds have seen a significant jump. The reference 590 rocks out at 1469 base and 1545 boost, and if we're being honest here, this is really the only reason we see the 580 and now the 590 perform better than the RX 480. It's still basically the same GPU. At similar clock speeds, we would basically be looking at a dead heat. But the fact that the 590 can actually run at significantly higher clocks makes it a much more appealing option for 1080p gamers, especially those who have invested in a high refresh rate FreeSync monitor. Across the board, we see about a 20% improvement from the original Polaris, that's the 480, until now. And this is enough of a jump to leapfrog the previous 1080p champion, the GTX 1060. In fact, even though I still think the GTX 1060 is a reasonable option and a good product, it almost doesn't make sense now to consider buying one. A 1060 will run you somewhere in the neighborhood of about $250. For $50 less, you can grab an RX 580 that will perform about the same, if not maybe a little bit better. Or for $30 more, you can get one of these two, which will beat the 1060 handily in almost every test. Let's take a look at our two cards we have here today before we pit them head to head in an all-out brawl for the crown. This is the PowerColor RX 590 Red Devil. The Red Devil moniker has been used by PowerColor for many different AMD products now, and usually indicates their highest end SKU. A fairly aggressive and quite hefty 2-fan cooler makes no apologies about abusing the black and red theme, and the thickness of the heatsink inside is downright impressive. A total of 5 heat pipes snake around underneath the shroud and enable what is becoming pretty standard on a lot of higher end cards these days, and that's a fan stop mode. The Red Devil also features a dual BIOS switch, which enables more aggressive fans if you want them, but even with the fans spinning slowly, it was hard to hear them at all. With the ultra overclocking BIOS selected, I found stock clocked idle temps on this card to be just above ambient, meaning that PowerColor definitely did something right here. There's even a little switch that you can flick to turn off the LEDs under the logo, although that will do little to take away from the redness of this card. Out of the box, this card boosted to 1576 MHz and stuck there like glue. But I wanted to see how far I could push the Polaris die. After all, these have never really been great overclockers. I was able to achieve a paltry 49 MHz offset before some really awesome looking artifacting took hold. So 1625 was as fast as it would run. I was also able to bump up memory speeds by 100 MHz. Because I've been working with overclocking RTX cards the past few months where you can crank the memory up 1000 MHz or more, this whole process seemed pretty anemic and didn't result in a huge performance uplift. but this is more a function of the architecture and not an indicator of the quality of this particular card. Load temps with an increased fan curve and boosted clocks were only 59C, meaning that thermally we were nowhere near any kind of constraint. Our other competitor is the Sapphire RX 590 Nitro Plus Special Edition. What makes it special per se, I'm not entirely sure. In fact, this is the only 590 that Sapphire makes, so it's not like it's an improvement over some existing product. Still though, the baby bluish, aqua-ish shroud is totally unique, and I'm all in on the look of this card. Yes, this is plastic rather than metal, but on a sub $300 GPU, I have no issues with that whatsoever. The fans and the Sapphire logo light up a corresponding shade of blue, although only the logo is RGB enabled. Sapphire does offer the option to purchase different colored fans for their 580 and 570 cards, and I wonder if they would also fit here. They probably would, but I couldn't find any documentation on it, and honestly, I find the whole thing a little silly because I can't imagine many people buying a card this blue and then making the fans red or whatever. The fact that Sapphire kept this design to a strict 2 slots when many board partners, including PowerColor, are bulging out to 3 is a nice touch and means that you can fit this card into a lot of systems that the Red Devil can't go in, most notably mini ITX builds with a power supply shroud or the PSU mounted directly beneath the PCIe slot. There's 4 total copper heat pipes hiding in here, helping keep idle temps down while the fans aren't spinning. I didn't find the Nitro Plus to be quite as effective at cooling as the Red Devil, as temps sat at 43C at idle while the fans weren't doing their thing. In practical terms, this is fine, but consider that the Red Devil spun its fans ever so slowly in its out-of-the-box configuration and was able to basically chop the result in half thermally while still being inaudible. I think ultimately that's the solution that I prefer. I don't care if the fans spin slowly if I can't hear them, and I'd rather extend the life of my graphics card by keeping temps in check. I also found at load that the Nitro Plus ran a full 10 degrees warmer than the Red Devil at stock clock speeds. When I applied an overclock and tweaked the fan settings, load temps were right back in line with where they should be, I think, and they went toe-to-toe with the Red Devil card. This was at the expense of some noise, however, which we'll see in the comparison charts in just a minute. If I was not particularly thrilled with the overclocking headroom on the Red Devil, I was downright disappointed in the Nitro Plus. With stock boost clocks of 1560, I hope to be able to match the Red Devil and get up to 1625 manually, which would mean a greater offset. However, I was only able to get to 1590 before constant driver crashing set in. Even 5 more megahertz than this caused massive instability, and I wasn't able to touch the memory frequency at all. Let's take a look at some charts that compare these two at both stock and overclocked settings. My testing was done with an i9 9900K at 5 GHz to try to eliminate as much of a CPU bottleneck as possible. The tests were all run at 1080p and ultra or very high settings. Keep in mind that load temps when overclocked are lower than load temps at stock, and that's simply because I had the fans running more aggressively. Here's how things stack up. To be honest, these were some of the most boring charts I've ever had to do. Not that the performance was bad, and actually I'm quite impressed with what these cards are capable of. The problem was that there was such little variance between stock and OC results, and such little difference between these two cards in general, that you could basically not say that one is better than the other when it comes to gaming. Yes, the Red Devil overclocks slightly higher, but when we're talking Polaris, this doesn't carry much weight, as the gains were in the 1% range for the Nitro card and in the 3 to 5% range for the Red Devil. Combined with the fact that you're getting significantly more noise by doing this, and we might be looking at the first GPU that I've ever worked with that I just kind of recommend leaving at stock settings. So if performance is just about a push, the differentiating factors are aesthetics, noise, and temperature. Looks is, of course, completely suggestive, and these two are about as different looking as two products can be. I like different aspects of both cards, but size definitely matters to some, so just be aware of your space restrictions when making your choice. The Red Devil is shorter but thicker, while the Nitro is only 2 slots but almost an inch longer. At load, the Red Devil is the quieter card, and temps are also generally better. Although, to be fair, if we turn on the fans of the Nitro Plus, even a little, that difference shrinks considerably. With identical MSRPs of $279, which one of these 590s would be your choice? Let me know down below in the comments. Also, don't forget to get subscribed to the channel if you're not already, and check out the merch store linked in the description. If you're interested in buying either of these cards, you can find links to do so down there as well. Please be aware that they are affiliate links. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.